So for those of you who attended last week, welcome back. I'm thrilled for today's session. This might actually, and I'm going to say this every week, this might be my favorite topic. And every week I'll repeat that because I think all 5 of these sessions is really impactful. And even if you take a couple things away from each, I think it'll make tremendous impact on your teams, on your customers, on your company. And that's what this is all about, right? How do we drive impact? How do we make change that matters? So for today, as Dave mentioned, we are going to talk about moving to a partnership kickoff framework. So I will cover everything from, why are we making this change? What is a partnership kickoff, Kristi? All through what did I design here at Client Success? So I will actually walk you through our partnership kickoff framework through our template that I've created for my team. And as a takeaway for today, you guys will get access to that template so you can take it, use it, make it your own. If this change is something that you'd like to implement, it'll be seamless. I'll talk to you about how to fit it into your workflow and your process. And without further ado, let's jump right into today's topic. So I'm going to tell you guys a little story, and I'm sure this story is going to resonate if you have been a customer success practitioner yourself, if you are a leader who's leading a team, perhaps this has been the experience that you've seen, that you've felt. So typically what I had experienced as a CSM, years ago when I was an individual contributor, is working in a lot of organizations, sales team, super pumped, we'd get a contract signed, congratulations, right? We've got a new customer on board, woo! What's going to happen, right? My sales team so quickly wants to introduce me as the new CSM to that customer, right? So we've got this introductory email that goes out. I'm responding right away. Great. Let's get our onboarding kickoff scheduled. And then we jump right into onboarding. And I pause there for a moment because it feels like we missed something, right? As a CSM, I was like, wow, okay, great. We're signed and now we're going right into training and enablement and product configuration. And honestly, even with the knowledge transfer, I always felt like, wow, I don't really know what it is that my customers were expecting of me. I don't really know what their goals were. Maybe the sales team captured something there. Maybe they didn't. Maybe I introduced some of that conversation in onboarding, but maybe it doesn't flow properly. So, as I've evolved as a leader, I thought, wow, you know what? Okay, this feels like a disjointed experience, right? Like we can make this better. We can facilitate a more meaningful conversation. We can align better with our customers, right? We can set better expectations. So what I've designed is a slight modification on this, right? We're still moving fast. Still, some of these key components are a part of that, but I've added something new. So contract is still getting signed, right? You still got to bring those customers on board. Super exciting. But now I don't want to just introduce my CSM. I want to introduce the account team, right? I want to start out the gate with letting my customer know, wow, there's not just one person designated to your success. There's several people, right? So we've got an account team. I've got folks on our leadership team, on our consulting team, technical support, customer success. And I want my customer to know that all of these folks will play a role in supporting that partnership. You'll also know that I use specific language. I never say dedicated, right? Because unless you've got a one-to-one resource staffing, right, where you've got one customer supported by one CSM, that person is not dedicated. They're designated. So just make sure that you think about that as you're communicating with your customers, right? Dedicated can send a very different message. So now that I've got my account team introduced, I'm facilitating what I've now referred to as our partnership kickoff. So it's an important conversation that is now happening prior to the commencement of onboarding, right? We're still going to move quickly. We're still going to start the configuration and the training and the data ingestion, but not before I have a real good understanding of what my customers need, why they're here to begin with, what their expectations look like for the partnership, and how we can partner together on this journey. So that was the impetus of me starting this partnership kickoff framework. And I will tell you, the feedback has been remarkable. Our customers have felt like we knew them better. We were having better conversations. My CSMs understood how our customers were defining success. And it allowed us to be more consultative in the approach that we took, not only in an ongoing basis, but really even from onboarding too. It was more tailored. It felt more specific to them, right? And so that created a better experience. Now, of course, once we get beyond that partnership kickoff and have that wonderful conversation, we can start that onboarding. And so there is also a heightened velocity that happens here, right? Because I do want to move quickly. I don't want this to be, 3-4 weeks out. In fact, we strive to have that partnership kickoff in 5 business days or less after that contract is signed, right? So obviously the sooner we can have it, the better. And this conversation, listen, it doesn't need to have everybody involved. You don't need that entire account team. If it can only be your customer success manager, your professional, whatever, practitioner, that's okay. But you need someone who's going to orchestrate that discussion. So let's talk a little bit about what this is, right? Because again, there's still probably some ambiguity around, okay, well, Kristi, what is this partnership kickoff? Well, the way that I think about this, it's a formal executive level discussion with your new customer to align on the partnership goals and their expectations. Now, I get a lot of people that ask, Kristi, how do you get an executive engaged, right? They don't want to attend onboarding kickoff. It's too tactical, right? It's in the weeds. It's all about the product. And so this was one of my solves for this, right? It elevated the conversation. And what we would say right after the contract was signed is, in order for us to get started, Mr. Executive, who may have just signed that contract, we want to bring you to the table, right? We want to make sure that we are crystal clear on what you need and what you expect so we can deliver for you. And I'll tell you, I have yet to have an executive who hasn't willingly participated and taken an active role in the conversation as well. And so it's about positioning, it's about tailoring the conversation, but if you position it and pitch it the right way, everyone's going to be eager to attend. In fact, we give also a list of recommended attendees in the agenda. So we say, this is who we'd like to have as part of that conversation. And here's the role we'd like for them to play in that discussion, right? So we're even going as far as allowing them to prepare so they know what to speak to. And we're telling them, we're going to cover your goals. We want to align on your business and who you are and who your customers are, right? There's a lot of this that we dive into. And don't worry, I'm going to share with you our deck. You're going to have all of this. So I know a lot of you are like, okay, show me the material. You're going to get it. But this is important for us to just align on this so that way you understand how to really deliver this to your customers so that they want to engage. So why did I do this? And what is the difference, right? Kristi, why do I need to create another meeting or another point of connection with my customer, right? We just want to get into onboarding. So listen, at the end of the day, you don't have to do this. This is not a required step. But what I am going to tell you is the benefit that I've had in the partnerships that we've created as a result of this conversation. So with the partnership kickoff, this has been a discussion that our executive stakeholders have no problem participating in. We get no pushback. Right? And if you're looking to facilitate and build and have those executive level engagements and relationships, now is the time to start to build those, right? So if you do this right the first time and your customer sees value in this conversation and you've tailored it the right way, they'll come back to the table. They'll be willing to engage. And in fact, if you're bringing your executives to this conversation as well, you're going to start to facilitate and allow them to build their own relationships. So again, you're creating this partnership mindset that is showing that everyone is required for us to be successful. The next thing is we focus on establishing those goals and setting benchmark KPIs. Now, again, it's not that you can't do that in onboarding, but when your focus is really on the product and training, enablement, and configuration, you're going to end up that way. And the goals might even be focused on the product and onboarding less than the partnership. And so it's just important to, again, if you separate out the conversations, they're going to take different shape and form. So we do a big focus on their goals and setting those benchmarks. The next thing is we establish partnership expectations. I'll tell you, it is very nice to go to my customer and say, how do you envision us engaging, right? What is the cadence that you see moving beyond onboarding, right? Because onboarding, we want to move pretty rigorously through this process, right? We're going to meet weekly, sometimes more than weekly. But what happens after that, right? What does our customer expect from us? What is the level of handholding and support and consultation that they need? Because if we don't know what they expect of us, that's how we fail. The next thing we do is we review our customer journey and our feedback loop. So if you were able to join us last week or you watched the recording of designing that customer journey, you've seen our journey. So this is something that we spend time walking our customers through because it's important that they understand how we look at it and the steps and the milestones that we hope to engage in through together, right? Again, it's that partnership mindset. And the last thing we do is we align on the onboarding program and next steps because, again, about setting expectations, it's important for our customer to know, well, okay, after today's conversation and we have this great discussion, where do we go from here? And so it really enables us to outline what the next couple days, weeks, months might look like for them in a very practical way that they can figure out which resources they need, what data they need access to. So we're really just setting them up for success so we can really, again, accelerate that partnership from this point on. So what doesn't happen when I just skip that step and go straight to onboarding? Well, one, I'm starting with this technical conversation, right? And at that point, I lose executive interest, right? Sometimes you'll have an executive, if you're selling to a technical audience and a technical leader, maybe if you're selling to a CTO or a CISO or CIO, maybe they want to be involved, right? Because this is something that maybe they're passionate about. But if you've got a less technical executive, the likelihood of getting their time and attention when you're diving right into the product is a lot less likely, right? If you guys are executives yourselves, think about that, right? Do you tend to join onboarding kickoffs that you know are going to be heavily product focused or training focused? So it's just important to, again, distinguish the two. The next thing that I've noticed about the onboarding, jumping right into onboarding, right, is that it's in the weeds, right? It's very tactical and you're focused on tasks and activities. And when that's the case, it's hard to elevate the conversation and bring it back to broad business goals, right? So again, if you're driving the conversation one way, it is hard to pivot. So again, I felt that I never really got the audience, the engagement, or the ability to have a very strong conversation around goals when I jumped right into onboarding. The third thing is that the meeting was structured around assumptions. Because I didn't set proper expectations with our customers, I was making assumptions going in there, right? Maybe these assumptions were based off of my own understanding of who I thought the customer was or what they needed, or maybe information that the sales team shared with me that might not even be relevant any longer. So by not having the ability to talk about their expectations, I jumped to assumptions, and that never really created a great partnership because I tend to drive the relationship and the conversation one way when maybe the customer needs me to do something different. The next point here was short-term visibility around onboarding and next steps. I didn't get to see the big picture, right? I never got to tell the story of what the journey would look like and how we're going to engage and how we're going to embark on this, right? What are my expectations for them? You know, not only what theirs are for me. So it was a little short-sighted. I didn't get to tell the whole journey story. So this partnership kickoff really allowed me to do that. Whereas the onboarding one, again, I was focused on the next 90 days. And listen, there is something important about that focus, but not when you miss that big step in really that partnership alignment. And the last thing is in the onboarding kickoff, because that's where I started, I took a one-size-fits-all approach to onboarding enablement, right? Again, I didn't really get the context from my customer who said, here's what we need, here's our challenges, here's our resources, here's our timing. I went into this like standard, okay, here's what onboarding looks like for us, here's how we're going to do it, let's go. And, you know, again, the customers didn't feel like it was tailored for them. It didn't feel, I don't want to say customized, right? But it didn't feel like it was their journey. It didn't feel like it was their onboarding experience. It felt very, you know, inside out, not outside in. And that's not the experience we want for our customers. So when you're deciding whether or not you're going to include this step in your process, these are things to consider. Now, again, I'm not telling you that one way is right or one way is wrong. I am simply telling you, here's what I've done and here's why I've done it. So if you're going to continue with your onboarding kickoff as your first point of engagement, go for it. As long as it works for your customers and your business, there is nothing wrong with it. But for me, I felt I needed to pivot because I wanted to facilitate a different level of engagement. All right, so where does this fit in, right? There's going to be a lot of steps and there's going to be a lot of tasks and things happening. So I want to sequence this so that you understand how I fit this into our workflow while still keeping the same velocity. So CSM introduction, right? This isn't going to change. My sales team is still going to introduce our customer success professional and that account team to the customer as quickly as possible, right? I always say, I'm like, listen, if you can get it out in less than 24 hours, that's great. If you can get it out in 5 hours or less, it's better. And if you can get it out right away, that's the best. So getting that out to the CSM team just allows our customers to feel like we're ready. We're going to ride. We're going to go with this. We're moving fast. The next thing that we do have is we do an internal knowledge transfer. And I know depending on the size of your organization and the number of resources you have, maybe you don't have time to do an hour-long knowledge transfer. But what we do is we do make time we allocate 45 minutes to this, and it allows our pre-sales team, and this can include, if you've got technical engineers and executives and, all kinds of folks that were involved in the pre-sales, you bring them to the table because they all probably heard things that are going to be valuable. And you bring the inheriting account team. So if that's going to be somebody from onboarding or your CSM or, consulting, professional services, whatever the case may be, bring the receiving team to the table and have a conversation. Now, what this will allow you to do is to avoid assumptions and also avoid asking your customers questions that they have already spent the past several months answering for the sales team. No one likes to repeat themselves. So if you can have that internal knowledge transfer, if you can't have the meeting, at least have a way to capture all of those details, whether it's in your CRM, whether it's in your customer success management solution, or heck, even in a Word doc, right? So just make sure the information is being passed from sales to customer success. So then this is where our partnership kickoff meeting takes place, right? After we've had any internal conversations that we need to have, we dive right into that partnership kickoff. And so, like I said, we are trying to orchestrate this meeting in the first 5 business days. But again, it's up to our customers. They set the tone, they set the cadence, right? If they say, hey, I'm on vacation for 2 weeks, see you when I get back, that's fine. We'll take their lead. But for my team, they know we want to move quickly. But I also know that we've got to prepare. And that preparation obviously requires these internal discussions, the deck preparation. Our CSMs like to do their own research on the company. So all that does take a little time, which we like to build in. So we say 5 days. Once that's done, we're really big on memorialization of conversations. I always say, listen, the best thing you can do is send a follow-up to your customer to repeat what you've heard, right? Summarize the conversation, outline your next steps, send them the materials that you went over, make sure that they have everything that they need, such that if anyone wasn't able to join or attend, they can pass all that over and nobody would skip a beat. But I'm big on memorialization. Once that's done, guess what? You can go right into onboarding. Now, again, you guys can move as quickly or slowly as you'd like, but our onboarding commencement here will now start with more of that technical implementation, that data ingestion, training enablement, right? It's really focused now on executing on what our customers told us that they need in that partnership kickoff meeting. So this is how we've orchestrated it. This is kind of our sequence of events in those first couple hours, days of the partnership. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to walk you all through our deck that I've used. And this is actually the template that my team uses. I will create a just slightly modified version, which we will be sending to all of you who are attending and those who have registered at the end of the session. So I think Dave said within the next 48 hours, when we send our recap, it will include a template that you guys can access and use as you see fit. So let's see, my mouse does not. Okay, there we go. Okay, so first, let's start with the agenda. I'm really big on setting an agenda for every conversation we have, whether it's your regular cadence of engagement with your customers, an executive meeting, or something more formal like your partnership kickoff. So what I say to our customers is, this is what we're going to cover, right? First and foremost, I want to know who you are. What does your business do? Who do you serve? How do your customers view you? How does your technology make their lives better, right? What are your expectations for the partnership? So I just want to get an understanding of their business. The next thing that we do is we introduce that partnership. Now, this is where we're going to talk about our team and the resources that we allocate to them. We'll walk them through our journey. We'll talk about engagement and our resources. The third topic here is all about goal setting. We're here to establish and understand what their partnership objectives are and really start to talk about those KPIs, right? I want to know, how are you measuring and defining success? The fourth part of onboarding review. So it's going to be setting them up for that next series of conversations, right? That onboarding, that technical implementation, that training enablement. I want to make sure that they know what that will look like and how we can get there quickly. And the last topic that we talked through is obviously next steps. We like to get those meetings on the calendar. I always tell my team, do not end a call without another call on the calendar. That is my rule of thumb. So I always say, if we can get that onboarding kickoff scheduled while we have them, let's do that. And then I always say, also, if we can get that ongoing cadence of engagement established as well, let's do that. So that way we never skip a beat, right? There's never a lull or a, oh gosh, I forgot. You're right. I haven't spoken to that customer in 3 months. Ooh, right. So the more we can do to bridge those gaps and make sure these things don't happen, the better. So what I do is, and I ask my team, we introduce our agenda. But before we move beyond this, I always ask for my customers to say, does this meet your expectations for the conversation today? Is there anything else that's not been outlined here that you wish to cover as part of our discussion? I also ask all of our customers to confirm that they have the amount of time allotted, right? And I do ask if they have a hard stop or if the conversation does need to run over, do they have flexibility at the top of the hour or the top of the half hour, right? So again, it's that call control, it's setting those expectations, and it's allowing me and the customer success team to orchestrate the discussion the best way possible. So that's our agenda. So the first thing we do is, and again, this is our template, right? So my team goes and fills in all these little areas. So the who you are, my team actually comes and fills this in. So they go and they do their research of who the company is, what does it say about their, them on their website? What can we learn about them through G2 or any other online resources, right? We want to make sure that we're crystal clear on who our customer is. The next thing I want to know is, well, what do they do? Right? What is it that they're solving for? How do they support their customers? Discuss the use cases and any other details. And again, what we do is we position this with like, here's what we understand of your business, but you know your business better than us. So tell us, have we understood this correctly? What more would you want us to know about who you are? And the third component here is who you serve, right? We are a customer success management solution here at Client Success, right? So our customers are trying to provide a better experience and better orchestration for their customers. So for me, it's important to know who their customers are, right? How do they engage? How do they serve their customers? So this is really, really, really important for us, is not only to understand the who, the what, but also the who to serve, because that's just going to be a big component of that as well, right? Are they serving enterprise? Is it SMB? So really just this is key. So again, what we do, we share what we've learned and we ask our customers to validate that. So we're not asking them questions. We're saying, have we captured this correctly? Is this in line with what you would want us to know about your business? And we find that our customers love this. They love that we come prepared. The feedback is like, wow, you've really done your homework. And they love that. They love that we're investing that time and that energy and effort to really understand who they are, because that does matter. The next thing that we do here is this partnership expectations. So we actually don't modify this slide. What we do is we ask them, right? Like, this is us to understand, what your preferences are. So as far as engagement, when we move beyond onboarding, how do you envision us engaging with you? And so we've had customers who say, you know what, we want to meet weekly, some biweekly, some monthly. Some have asked like, hey, can you come on site once a quarter, right? Like, can you do trainings with our broader team, right? Like they'll actually start sharing a lot about what this engagement model will look like in the here and now, and then also what that future state will look like, which is really what we're looking for, is what do they want from us? And then can we deliver for that, right? And let's align so it makes sense. The second one here is communication. Obviously, this is huge. We always ask what their preferred method is. And this probably stems from an interesting career path that I've personally had, where I've worked with so many unique personas where not everyone is a fan of video. Not everyone is a fan of meetings. I've had some customers who are in the field and on the road more than anything. And so they'll tell me, Kristi, I can do phone and I can do text, but if you're emailing me all day, I'm not going to be responsive because I'm not sitting in front of a computer. So it's important to set those expectations. And you know what? You might find that you're now opening new doors, right? If I position this and say, like, are you comfortable with text messaging? I might now get access to their mobile number where I hadn't before. So just allowing them to tell you with what they're comfortable with and what their preferences are goes a long way. And the third one is about success, right? And we always ask, what does success look like for the partnership? This doesn't mean what they need the product to do. This isn't about even their goals or outcomes, but like a year from now, what could we have done together that would allow you to make the recommendation to continue that partnership? So what do you need to see? And listen, maybe your contract term is 24 months, maybe it's 36 months, whatever the case may be, that's totally fine. But understand what that looks like and how they're defining it, right? They probably have a visual in their head that says, this is exactly what it looks like for them, right? So if I can do these three things, or if I'm solving for this one thing, then I'm there. So it may have nothing to do with your product, right? But it might help support how your team is guiding them through your product or the adoption of your product. So I think it's just really important to make sure that you're outlining this, let your customers lean in and tell you what they want. The next thing we do is I want to know who we need to work with on their team. I cannot tell you how many times I've asked my team, hey, who is their blank contact? And we're over here scratching our heads, trying to scour LinkedIn to figure that out, right? Maybe we're in Discover.org. So this might look different for your business, but for us, I like 5 key people, right? Who's my executive sponsor? Who's going to be my day-to-day lead? Is there a technical resource allocated here? Is there somebody who's manning operations or program management, or, you know, someone who sits in a role like that? And then billing. Nobody on the front end of this visual wants to be bothered with billing. So I always like to just say, who is the best person if there's any billing questions or concerns, or who should I send that invoice to? So it just helps streamline all of that and gets it out of the way. But we also come with this prepared. So not only do we send a partnership kickoff survey out to our customers, but most of these contacts have already been identified in the sales process. So my sales team probably already knows 4, if not all 5 of them. And so I come here with all of this filled out, right? Our team has this prepared, and we ask them to validate it, right? Like, are these the right people? Are there additional people that we should be working with? If so, let's understand who they are, what their roles are. You know, we don't go through a whole org mapping structure, right? I don't need that right now, but to start the partnership, I want to understand who are some of the key players. Now, if you have a way more complex technology in a very different ecosystem in which you operate, maybe this looks like an org chart. Maybe it is way more comprehensive, but for my needs, this is all. I just need these 5 people. So you need to figure out on your end, who are the people that you need to identify day one. If you don't need to identify them day one, though, maybe you punt them and they're not for this meeting. Maybe you save that for additional conversation later down the line. But for us, it's these 5. So now we move into part 2, which is that partnership introduction, which now we walk them through our designated account team, right? So this is our introduction of the resources that are designated, again, at the top there, designated to their partnership, right? So we start with, at the top, it's always that customer success professional. They put their name, their title, and what organization they sit in. If we've got somebody from support designated, we list them. If not, we'll put something like technical engineer or something like that, which is just a broad placeholder to let them know that we also leverage our technical resources in this capacity. We always tell them who their executive sponsor is internally on our end. So in many cases, it's either myself, it could be Dave Blake, it could be someone else. But for the most part, we like to make sure that our customers are aware of who they can reach out to on our end, should they need to escalate or praise or celebrate or look for guidance or whatever the case may be. But everyone gets access to an executive on our side. And the last one there is services. Now, this might be an onboarding resources. It could be professional services. It could be consulting. It doesn't matter. And again, your org chart could look way more comprehensive or way more scaled down, and that's okay. The important thing here is to make sure that your customer understands who they're going to work with, in what capacity, and what those roles look like. At the bottom here, you'll also see that I also do provide things like support at client success. And I also tell them, like, here's your knowledge base. So, our help dot. So these resources are great for our customers. It allows them to really clearly understand how they're going to work with our team, who their main points of contact are. And it avoids a lot of like back and forth, or worse yet, let me go back to our salesperson, right? Because I don't know who I'm supposed to be working with, which that to me is always my least favorite outcome. So again, on this one, doesn't matter what your account team looks like, even if it's one person, put that person there, put their photo, sing their praise, tell that customer how they're going to work together. But again, it's about clear roles and responsibilities. Now, I won't spend too much time here because if you hopefully attended part 1 of this series, you've already seen our customer journey. If not, hopefully you can go back and go review our recorded webinar for that. But you will see here, this is our customer journey. We walk our customers through this. So we tell them all about our 4 stages, what we expect from them, how this works. Then we also introduce them to a couple of those tasks and activities that they might be exposed to. Again, it's very clearly aligning with them Here's how you should expect to work with us. And here's what the journey typically looks like. Now, again, you'll see it's very high level. So it's not going to be every single task, activity, step that they're going to work with us through, but we want to paint a picture, right? We want to give them a visual that says, here's how, we're going to engage over a period of time. And here's what our hope is, right? Our hope, I always say, is stage 4. That is my end goal, right? If I can get to my customers to a point where they feel like they are and can be and want to be an advocate for us, that is us winning. And so, we introduce that journey with those tasks and activities along the way. So after we've done that, I do believe I've skipped a slide here, so bear with. Yep, okay, there we go. We also walk our customers through our feedback loop. So if those of you are out there doing surveys, or even if you're just doing NPS, right? I'm big on customer feedback, and I want feedback any way, shape, or form my customers are willing and able to share that with me. But more importantly, if you do have a prescriptive model in which you are seeking feedback from your customers, it's important to share that up front. So what we do is we introduce our journey feedback loop. And what this says is, Mr. Customer, Mrs. Customer, here are the points in time in which we're going to seek your feedback, right? We're going to want to know a couple months after it's been sold, did we meet your expectations, right? Is this what you thought you were getting coming out of that sales process? After we've concluded onboarding, I want to know how that experience was for you. At some point, we will do NPS. Customer reference score, we're not doing right now, but that would be an in-product, how easy is it to use our solution? Because I want to get some product feedback there. Our CSP, so this is our Customer Success Practitioner Survey. At some point in that journey, during our realize stage, when my team is highly engaged, I want to know, does my customer feel like their CSP understands who they are, what they need? Are they getting that value from us in that consultative manner, right? So it's allowing us to really gauge how our customer feels about the resources that we've allocated to the partnership. The next one there is a renewal survey. I'm really big on the renewal process. We will tackle that in this webinar series, so I'm not going to spend much time there, but I do want to know ahead of time, should I anticipate a future relationship, or is there going to be some interesting things that we've got to navigate? And the last thing there is our State of Customer Success annual survey. Hopefully many, if not all of you, have participated in that. We did close it out, but there will be some findings we'll be sharing. But each year we also do send out a State of Customer Success survey, which allows us to collect global feedback from the industry, which we then package up and share all those insights with the wonderful community. So something else that we do ask all of our customers to participate in on. Now, one thing I do ask, and this is something that might make this a bit unique, I'm not only putting this out here and saying, hey, here's our feedback loop. What I do here is I like to call on the executive stakeholder who hopefully is in attendance and ask for their support in collecting this feedback. So what we ask is, Mr. Executive, Mrs. Executive, do we have your support in helping us capture this feedback from you and your team throughout our journey? And they're either going to say yes or they're going to say no, right? And guess what? Nobody ever says no, because nobody wants to say, I'm not going to give you feedback. So usually it's a resounding yes. And what we do is we do thank them. And then it allows us to come back to our customers in the future if they're not filling out the surveys, right? Or they're not giving us feedback. We can say, hey, remember when we introduced this in our partnership kickoff? Well, here's our survey, help us out. Because we can't change what we don't know is broken, right? Feedback is key. So that's the last point that I'll anchor on for that section. We then move into goal setting. And so I'm really big on making goal setting easy for our customers. I'm sure many of you struggle to get your customers to articulate how they're defining success with a partnership, or really what their objectives are. So what I was able to do, and I sit in a unique seat, remember, because I am the customer of client success, right? I'm a customer success leader. And so what I know to be true about customer success software is that there's basically 7 reasons why companies purchase customer success software. And so I was able to create this slide, which we present to our customers, which says, what are your business objectives? Are you trying to democratize data, operationalize process, drive efficiency, mitigate risk, identify growth, increase visibility, or scale? And then what I've done here is we actually have mapped back our entire product suite to all of these. So we know that if you're using our health score, right, that's going to help you identify growth. It's also going to help you mitigate risk. If you're using our success cycles, right, that's going to help you operationalize your processes. So we have the ability to map all this. Now, what I would encourage all of you to do is figure out What are your objectives, right? Why are your customers buying your product? And then map back the features, right? Because it's not about the features, it's not about the functionality, it's about those outcomes. And I'll tell you, for this, I have yet to find a customer who has said, hey, Kristi, I've got an 8th one that you don't have listed here, because almost anything that they're going to do or want to do fits in one of these categories. But now, once I know what my customer is focusing on, we always ask, select no more than 3 and then stack rank them, because that allows us to focus our onboarding, our initial engagement with them, and prioritize how we're going to work together, because they've told us that this is what they're trying to do. So then we say, all right, great. Now that we know how you're going to do this, what are the goals, right? Mr. and Mrs. Customer, how are we going to measure success? So they're going to tell me things like, well, I need to reduce churn, or I need to identify growth, or, hey, Kristi, I need all my data in one place. Now, once I have those goals, now we've got to encourage them to figure out how to track those, right? What are those KPIs? Now, I know these are not easy conversations. I've been doing this for a decade, and I'll tell you, more often than not, we struggle. So I think the more you can lead your customers to get to this, the better off you'll be. So however you can prepare them in advance of this meeting, this is going to be huge. So for these are the 2 slides that we introduced there. 1, help me understand your objectives. And then 2, let's establish goals that support those objectives. And then 3, give me those KPIs, right? What are the metrics that we're going to use? And once you've outlined it that way, and the simplification of this conversation helps them have that aha moment. And the coolest thing ever is when you literally see the light bulb go off, right? So I encourage you all to figure out, what are your objectives for your technology? What are the goals that you would see commonly used, right? So I also tell my customers, hey, listen, here are my goals, right? So if I'm thinking about operationalization of processes, I want to know, great, did I make sure that because of this, I can do, all of my customers have our core meeting, or I can do, these 3 things faster, or my team has this much more time back in their day, right? You gotta map those back. So it's really important that you establish this. And at the end of the day, it's okay if your customer has one goal, that is awesome. Just be very clear on what that one goal is and get those KPIs, right? Because you can't manage what you can't measure. All right, so let's talk through our onboarding review. So for us, we want to simplify what that onboarding looks like to our customer. So I designed a slide that says, basically, here's what's going to happen in 90 days. Now, ideally, if I'm being honest with you, I'd like this to be 60 days, but we're working towards bringing that down. So what I would say is design this so that it emulates what your onboarding looks like, and it may look very different. So for us, it's that kickoff, right? That kickoff is that partnership meeting. And then we go into that onboarding onboarding kickoff. The next big thing that we're working on is their platform configuration, right? Setting their platform up in a way that is going to mirror what they need it to do. The third one here is data ingestion. So for us, we've got to bring all of their data into our solution before we can do anything else. So we've got to make sure that that is a key pillar, right? Data ingestion is so critical. The fourth thing is training, right? We need to enable our customers to independently use the solution. Unless you are a managed service company, you have to enable your customers to use the product on their own. I know it sounds terrifying, right? And if you asked your customer that, I'm sure they'd be like, what do you mean? You're going to leave me alone? No, but they have to know how to use it, right? In their day-to-day, in their workflow, independently. So you got to make sure that the training does that. The last thing we do is we do a formal wrap up. So just like we formally kick off the partnership, when we get to the conclusion of onboarding, we have a formal executive wrap up, which basically reviews all of what we've done in onboarding, and we can do a training on that wrap up meeting. We've got a deck and a template for that too, but it really allows us to solidify the work that we've done together, the wins that we've had, the challenges that we've faced. We have a very honest discussion with our customers, and then it allows us to move forward together, right? Because I'll know what my customers need. They'll know how I can help. Everyone in their organization, we're all on the same page. So this would be really great if you can, if you're not doing this today, have a formal way to conclude your onboarding. So then we review with our customers, do we have everything that we need to get ready, to get started rather, right? So we send out an onboarding survey. So this is basically our checklist with our customer. So did you complete your onboarding survey? Hopefully there's a little check mark there, but if it's not, put a little exclamation point, right? So it says, hey, This customer, please send us that onboarding survey or go ahead and complete that so we can get started. List of end users. For us, we need to get everyone provisioned in the product. And so this is another task that we need, something we need to collect from them. So again, think about this in terms of assets. You may need material or things that your customers have to do before you can start. This is ours, right? So ours is give us your list of your end users. Now, we also do want our customers to share with us their customer journey, right? So what do they hope to orchestrate with their customers? What does it look like today? Because this will allow my team to then lean in more consultative. We'll know what their journey looks like and make sure the platform is configured in a way that mirrors that. And the third component here is their health score, right? So health scoring is big. It's a big part of what we do. It's important. So we always ask our customers, if you already have something and you can share that in advance, even if it's in its simplest form, we want to use that as the foundation. So when we build ours, we already have something that we're working off of. So your list of assets or tasks should be unique and very specific to your business, but it's important to establish this before you move into onboarding so you have everything you need to get started on the best foot. The next thing we do is we introduce what onboarding looks like. So we're very big on, again, being open, being transparent. So we're going to share a tracker with our customers that will walk them through the onboarding process. Our onboarding process is flexible. It's built in a way that allows us to focus on our customers' priorities. So those objectives that they shared with us, our onboarding will take shape and form following that. But we have one single place to house what's happening, when it's happening. It has materials that are there to help enable them along the way. And it just gives us clear management. So we like to talk about what we're going to provide there and how our customers should be using that tracker. If you guys use a project management software, if you use Excel or Google Sheets, it doesn't matter what you use. Just make sure that you have something, if you're going to introduce it to your customers, that you're going to use in partnership. And then from there, I like to be very clear on next steps, right? So where do you go next? So we make sure, let's get that scheduled, get our onboarding kickoff scheduled. Let's lock that down. Make sure that if you haven't, right, you've completed the survey and you've shared your assets with us. We're going to send you over that onboarding tracker. Make sure that you look at that and review it and bring any questions you have to that initial conversation. We'll modify it so that it meets your needs and expectations. And that fourth one is prepare all of your data for ingestion. So for us, we're really big on making sure we've just got clear next steps. You'll notice here, again, this is a template. So there's very little modification my team needs to make to the deck. And that's also a big part of this. They don't need the overhead of recreating the wheel every time they're meeting with the customer. So if you can also create easy to use, easy to edit, easy to modify resources for your team, it'll facilitate these conversations in a way you didn't think it could. So I'm really big on these materials, which is why, since you've joined, I'll be sharing them with you and you can hopefully take these and make them your own. So with that said, that actually is, and my computer's just super slow, the end of our presentation. I think I went through that faster than I've ever done that before. But hopefully that gave you guys some visibility into how we orchestrate our partnership kickoff and the value it brings to our customers as a result.
Oh, so many awesome gems, Kristi. The chat is blowing up. Q&A is blowing up. Do you have some time for some questions?
Let's do it. We got 11 minutes.
Okay, we've got a lot of questions. We've got 27 just in the Q&A. Thank you for everybody who submitted them. So we'll go through a bunch. So here's one. Oliver asked, would the CSM not get involved? Let's bring this in the closing phases of a deal before the contract is signed, where the CSM is sold as the benefit of the solution. So just your thoughts on engaging CSMs in the sales process. What are your thoughts there?
Listen, I think if it makes sense for your model, do it. I've worked at companies where we're sold to long tail, right? SMB, so there's a volume game. It's nearly impossible to include every, CSM in all of those conversations. But if you're selling into very strategic, larger enterprise companies, you've got the resources to do it, absolutely introduce them where it makes sense. I would say, include sales in the conversation about bringing customer success early into that process. I found some sales teams are eager and love the idea of that. The alignment is awesome. It makes the transition to your customers way easier. Some sales teams, depending on the velocity of the sales motion, might feel that it'll slow it down. So again, you need to take a tailored approach. It's whatever makes sense for your customers, for your product, for your organization, and then aligns with your resources. But if you can do it, I'm all for it. I think it creates a better, more seamless experience.
Awesome. Awesome. A lot of questions about how do you have different types of partnership kickoff calls for different customer segments? How do you do it for smaller customers? Is there ability to scale this? Maybe just in general, those types of questions.
Yeah, listen, like I said, I created this deck. All of my decks that you'll ever see me share or create or put out there can be modified in 30 minutes or less. I've timed them myself. And so that should help with scale. I do think even if you cannot facilitate a deck of this length and you need to have a 30-minute kickoff call with your customers because of the volume, I think you need to do it. You need to just figure it out. So whether it's you condense the time, you condense the material, whatever the case may be, but I think skipping it entirely is going to do a disservice. I think even if you've got a high volume of customers, you have to align on how they're defining success. Like everything we've covered here is critical to the partnership. And I think if you skip it all together, it's a missed opportunity. So figure it out, whether it's maybe you're doing it via a survey and some automation, or you're having the conversation, but not getting a clear understanding of this stuff from your customers, not great.
All right. And some clarification of who leads a call. Is it the CSM or the CS leader?
It's the CSM. In fact, I'm attending in face only. I have very little contributions unless my CSM, because we'll do some prep before, if they ask me to lean in or probe or talk more, I will, but it's their show. This is their customer. I am there to support them. And so I think empowering your team to have these conversations is really the way to go.
Awesome. So a lot of folks are asking questions about the pre-partnership kickoff survey. What kind of questions are in there? Maybe a little bit more details in that.
Maybe we share that.
Are we going to share that? I think that should be a template.
We'll just make that an asset also, guys. What else do you want? You get a survey and you get a deck. And like Oprah and give it all away.
We're going to package up everything here into as many templates as we can so that you'll have it.
Yes, we'll send out a survey. Again, remember, our survey is our survey. It's specific to our customers, the questions that we need to know. So when you're using my materials, and please use them, but when you're using them, remember to modify them and make them your own and make them applicable to your customers, because that is so important.
Okay. And some additional, there's 2 or 3 questions just about clarity around who attends the partnership kickoff versus the onboarding kickoff.
So partnership kickoff should be executive stakeholders, key points of contact, anybody who's going to be on the account team from your end. So bring your account team to the conversation, as many of those individuals as you can. Sometimes I can't join, right? Schedules don't align, and I never want to be a blocker or prohibit them moving quickly. So I tell my team, move if you've got to move. If I can't make it, I won't. I'm sorry, but I'll follow up with the customer. I always do. So I'll send a follow-up on the memorialized email saying, I'm sorry I couldn't make it. Would love to connect with you one-on-one. And I'll try to schedule some time with that executive, which actually helps facilitate that relationship. But on the customer side, it should be their executives, their main points of contact. If they've got a technical resource, or, like I said, whatever people I outlined, like those 5 people, 4, I won't include the billing person. They don't need to attend, but at least the 4 stakeholders that I outlined, I asked my customer to bring those to the table for the partnership kickoff. For the onboarding one, it's going to be your day-to-day lead. It's going to be your CSM. It's going to be any of your technical resources as well as their technical resources. So it's only the people that are required to facilitate product training, configuration, enablement, all that stuff.
Okay. And for those who where this is a new concept, do you see an opportunity? There's questions here about doing it retroactively with current customers, maybe taking a step back and saying, okay, we did the onboarding technical kind of call, but we never really aligned from a partnership kickoff call. Thoughts on that?
Yep. So change the name. Call it a partnership alignment meeting and say, we'd like to take a minute to just make sure that we are properly aligned so we can best support you moving forward. naming is everything, right? Like modify the name, have the exact same conversation. And we've had to do that with a lot of our customers. And in fact, a couple things that make it feel more organic. If you're doing an account transition, so maybe you have an account moving from one CSM to another, that is a great point in time to lead this conversation. Beginning of the year, end of a renewal, like someone just renewed, great time to go and do this and say, hey, what does the future success look like? Let's have this alignment meeting. So bringing this conversation to your customers, there's never a bad time. Just position it correctly so it doesn't feel awkward. So it's just all about positioning and how you name it.
Okay, great. Next question is, does it change if the CSMs are not involved on the commercial side of the business? If they don't own renewals, expansion, is this concept change at all?
No, this information is still important. And even if your customers aren't managing the renewal, right, somebody in your organization is. And so you still have to know how your customer is defining success, because someone's still going to want to answer that at the end of the subscription term. So it doesn't matter. This wasn't a commercially driven conversation, right? It was about partnership and expectations and starting off on the right foot. So no reason, if your CS team owns commercials or does not own commercials, that you can't structure this conversation to be just this.
Okay, sounds good. So a lot of people loved where you shared kind of the common reasons why people purchase, I think with ours, and love that concept of just defining the standard reasons why people purchase and get value. It's just a comment, just that it's awesome. Instead of asking open-ended questions about what your goals and objectives are, this gives you a chance to steer them into common goals and objectives that you're able to deliver on. So that's one comment that everybody had. No question, just a common comment. And then the next one is just generally, how long does this meeting last? Is it 30 minutes? Is it an hour?
I always tell my team schedule it for 75 minutes on their calendar, just so they've got a buffer of 15. You can do it in 60, but it really depends on how much how much you need to know about your customer, how complex it is, right? Like, I think it depends. A good discussion will never be less than 45 minutes. So even if you schedule an hour and your customer comes and there's like a little bit of crickets, or they don't want to share as much, they don't know what to share, I've never seen it be less than 45. And quite frankly, I've never seen customers not very highly engaged in sharing a lot, actually. So 60 is my, I think, benchmark barometer. Schedule a buffer because you get some chatty customers, which is great. And you want to allow time for them to share. Okay,
great. I think that's it. We're running out of time. Kristi, any final thoughts for the group?
I mean, this was probably, I'm going to say it every week, Dave. This is my favorite. I don't know. This one was great. This is near and dear to me because I have to say, making this pivot transformed all of our customers and how we engage. So anytime I had an opportunity to have this conversation, it was a game changer. So if you do nothing different from this 5-part webinar series, do this. This would be my recommendation. If you make one modification, go ahead and just introduce the concept of this conversation when you start with your customers.
All right. Thanks, Kristi. Thanks so much. Awesome insights as usual. Everybody, I'm sure you agree that Kristi just brings it every week. Thank you, everybody who came. Thank you for the engagement. There's tons of questions, tons of excitement. Just a couple of reminders. We will send out this video. So if you want to see the recording of this within 48 hours, we'll try to turn it around and you'll get it in your email box. You shouldn't have to do anything. If you are registered, you should receive those materials. We'll also have templates. We've added several other templates into the list today live of all the materials that Kristi has done and all the ways she's operationalized it here at Client Success and elsewhere. And remember, next week, the same time, same URL, we'll be back here again. Next week is on the anatomy of high performing health score. So thanks everybody for joining. If there's Client Success team can do for you, please let us know. Just send us an email or go to clientsuccess.com. Thanks and have a great week.
Bye guys. See you next week.